The Haunted Mansion is regarded as one of the most popular attractions throughout the Disney parks, with Disneyland's New Orleans-style mansion and Disney World and Tokyo's more Victorian-era mansion. There's many variations of this attraction that many people have grown to love. However, in today's video, we're going to be talking about what, in my opinion, is the best version of these rides, which is the Phantom Manor over in Disneyland Paris. So in today's video, we're going to talk about the ride itself and, most importantly, the story behind the attraction, the backstory behind it, and how it connects with the rest of its Frontierland, compared to the other Haunted Mansions, and just why I think this one is overall a stronger attraction. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started on why the Phantom Manor is the best version of the Haunted Mansion. So of course, like any other attraction, you start off in the queue of the ride. Now this ride has a very big outside queue, honestly probably the biggest outside queue of any Haunted Mansion, and honestly this reminds me a lot of the Tower of Terror over in Disney World's queue. You're kind of going through this like garden area with a bunch of lamps and lanterns and stuff like that. The only difference is that this one has a pretty cool patio with a little fountain in it, as you see here, and it just kind of overall is a pretty nice area. It's not honestly too spooky or anything like that, but it's just kind of a good environment of kind of the whole area of that Frontierland in particular. And as you're walking through the queue, you do hear this like music box in the background, which kind of again just sets up this sort of tone of the manor itself, kind of almost like a sad tone in a way. I don't know, it works really well with it. Even though it might not be the scariest queue or the coolest one, it's still pretty nice for the outside. However, as soon as you step onto the actual patio of the manor, you look across and you can see Big Thunder Mountain, and it kind of already starts setting up the story of the entire town of Frontierland and how it all connects together. I'll get into that later in this video, but I do like how the Imagineers sort of did that to where you can see Big Thunder Mountain really good from the view on Phantom Manor's patio. It's such a cool little nod to the story itself. So after that, you kind of just walk into the manor itself, and as you can see, it looks pretty similar to the Haunted Mansion. Sure, there's a couple differences within the wallpaper and like just kind of a little bit of the just setting as a whole, but it's the same kind of vibe, honestly. One of the coolest things about this is the portrait that's right there of Henry Ravenswood, who is the owner of the manor and Big Thunder Mountain, and his daughter right next to him. Again, just sort of setting up this sort of story that the other Haunted Mansions I kind of feel are a little absent from. Of course, that is sort of the mystery of the Haunted Mansion, but I do like that Phantom Manor definitely has more of a prominent story that actually you go throughout the ride, which we'll talk about later in this video. However, in this one, there is a different audio track, of course, that speaks French. It's not as cool, in my opinion, as the actual Ghost Host from the Haunted Mansion, just because that one sounds a bit more spookier, but this one's not bad. So as you can see here, the room does change color, which I like this effect a lot. It's really cool, and it just, again, it adds another just really dominant presence of like just an eerie vibe over the room. It's almost like the pre-show before the pre-show in a way, which is kind of funny to think about, but it just does such a good job of setting in the mood. And then as soon as that's over with, you walk into the stretching room, again just like any other Haunted Mansion, except this one's a little different. This one also plays really well into the story. Instead of a bunch of random ghosts or people on the portraits, you now have the different husbands that the bride has married. Which, if you don't know, her name is Melanie Ravenswood, aka the daughter of Henry Ravenswood. So yeah, so as you can see here, these are all of like their portraits and stuff together, and there's, again, another narration going on, pretty similar to the actual Haunted Mansion's narration, kind of, getting into your mind a little bit if the room's stretching or not. Nothing too different there, but I do just like the added effects and just, again, story-driven elements. And like any good stretching room, as the portrait starts stretching down, you start seeing how these people kind of met their demise. And if you notice, Melanie is always, still remaining alive in these photos. She's not actually dying with her husbands. However, whenever the lights flicker and stuff like that, you can actually see the Phantom is the one that's sort of killing off the people, as sort of hinted as him hanging the dude, which is incredibly dark for a Disney ride in my opinion. I'm surprised they even added that in there. Anyways, after you leave that room, you go into what is kind of just a normal Haunted Mansion hallway. This one has a bit more brighter colors than the usual Haunted Mansion corridor, so I kind of like that different change. It sort of adds a different feel for it, more of like a, I guess, a Western type of manner, which is kind of what it's going for. So again, it might not be like the spookiest sort of corridor, but it's still pretty nice. And now here we have what, in my opinion, is for sure the best loading area out of any Haunted Mansion. This is just such a cool loading area, and I'm pretty sure it was added whenever the Phantom Manor had its recent refurbishment about a couple years ago. Basically, as you see here, you can see just this giant staircase, and you can see Melanie staring out the window. Such a cool just scene, again, just really setting the story, like of a sort of depressing story almost. Just really eerie, spooky, the lightning's going off. Again, just a great scene setter overall. So as soon as you pass the loading station, you kind of go into a very similar, if not the exact same, sort of layout as the just regular Haunted Mansions. You go through the knight in shining armor, then you have the endless hallway. However, there is a couple differences in this one that again sort of just help the story kind of flow throughout the ride itself, such as instead of just a regular floating candle, in this one you can actually see the candle floating, then Melanie sort of appearing holding it, and the Phantom behind her, like he's always behind her watching her everything she does. Just a very controlling parent, I guess. But I do like these little details that they added. Sure, they're not really like the most necessary, but it does sort of, again, just help the flow overall. And even in the piano sequence, instead of it being just a normal piano player, you can actually tell from the shape of like the costume that the shadow is from the Phantom himself. Again, just it's such a cool detail, like they're always following you throughout the ride. And now we move on to the very famous corridor of doors, which is present in every single Haunted Mansion, including this one. Now, this one isn't different at all from really the other Haunted Mansions. Really, you just have, the doors creaking like usual, the scary sound effects, all that kind of stuff. Nothing too much different about this one. It's still great, but it's the exact same, so there's really not much to say about this one. Same can be said for the Madame Leota scene. Now, this scene I really don't like in the Phantom Manor. It just doesn't make sense to me why it's here. It doesn't, add anything to the story. In such a story-driven attraction, it just really doesn't add anything to it. It's really random, and I feel like it's only there just because it was sort of a mock of the original Haunted Mansions. Now, honestly, I could do without it, but it is what it is. And now here is the ballroom. Now this, again, is same can be said. It's very similar to the actual Haunted Mansion stuff, except this one also adds another Melanie and Phantom animatronic of them looking over the ballroom, and the Phantom sort of laughing in the background. It's really eerie. I love that so much that they actually added like this audio track of him laughing. Just still, it's not like the biggest change, but it definitely does enough to where you can definitely like tell it's its own thing from the original Haunted Mansions. Another small detail that I like that they added to this was the actual portrait of the Phantom Manor itself whenever it was kind of in its, its better state. Again, it's not like anything too insane, but I do like that they added it just to make it different from the other Haunted Mansions. And now we get to the attic scene. Now this scene is kind of where the ride really does start to take a different change from the original Haunted Mansions, and I actually really like it a lot. So now this scene starts off with a little fireplace with a portrait of Melanie on the top, and then you turn the corner, and instead of a bunch of this attic stuff, you actually see Melanie crying right in front of a window, and in front of a mirror, and in front of the mirror itself, you can see the Phantom sort of appear in the reflection, which is really cool, and then you instantly exit that. So it's a pretty small attic area, but you come face to face with the Phantom himself, and it's a pretty impressive animatronic overall. I can definitely see some kids being scared of this one, but he's kind of like dug a grave for you, which again is just implying that like you're about to be killed by this dude, which again is really dark for a Disney ride, but I really like that tone overall. And basically, this whole scene in general is you kind of just going through this like really decrepit graveyard, very, very different than the one in Disneyland and Disney World, versus those are more of like a silly sort of goofy graveyard with a bunch of ghosts. This graveyard is a more decrepit sort of, I think, underground graveyard from like an earthquake or something. And it shows more like zombie-like characters coming out of their coffins. Again, just very dark overall. I can definitely see a lot more kids being scared of this version of the Haunted Mansion versus the other ones. Now, my only complaint with this scene is that they do have the Grim Grinning Ghost theme song playing here with the singing bust, and it just doesn't fit in my opinion. I don't know, it just looks really weird and out of place, and the whole song itself does not fit this whole very dark theme around it, while the song itself is a little goofy. However, I do like the xylophone playing skeleton there with the bones. That's really creative. And then you do have the horse carriage, which is really cool. And then after this, you actually go through another sort of section, which is a old western town, the town of Ravenswood overall, basically Frontierland. And it's just such a cool setting, something that the Haunted Mansion never really has like anything to deal with. And you can actually see Big Thunder Mountain in the background. Just overall, really, really well done. I love the sort of almost cartoonish design of the town itself and some of the characters. This is definitely more of like the goofy, funny section of it versus the very scary section that you just went through. Overall, really, really well done. I love this scene so much. Probably one of my favorite scenes in general from any Haunted Mansion attraction. And then you come face to face with the Phantom again, in probably his most impressive form of an animatronic figure. Really, really cool. I love the laugh track on him. Just such a cool character overall. And now finally to where the hitchhiking ghost would be, you are met with a grave basically for Melanie, as then you pass by some windows, and instead of the hitchhikers, you now see her in your doom buggy asking if she will marry you in a very creepy way, kind of funnier in my opinion, but I do like the hitchhiking ghosts better just because they're more, classic and kind of makes more sense with the doom buggy since they're hitching a ride with you versus Melanie just sort of following you out of there. I don't know, still a cool scene though nonetheless. So now that we have the ride out of the way completely, what is the story behind this attraction? We keep seeing these characters of Melanie and the Phantom, aka Henry Ravenswood, appear throughout the manor, what exactly is their role in this? Well, first we need to talk about the Phantom himself. So basically this guy is Henry Ravenswood, and he is the owner of the Phantom Manor and a Big Thunder Mountain, so this kind of already directly connects all of Frontierland and Paris all together, which is why in my opinion this is the coolest Frontierland, just because everything connects together. He owns the entire town of Ravenswood. This entire town is a very haunted place because of an earthquake that happened here. So basically, yeah, all of his miners died in this big earthquake and mine collapsing on Big Thunder Mountain, which explains why Big Thunder itself is also haunted. So it's just really cool that this entire frontier town is just extremely haunted. And it's also just really cool to have a full-on land sort of have this big connecting story together. It's almost like there could be an entire movie just off of this land. Even before the events of the big earthquake that happened there, Henry Ravenswood was already not a very good person to begin with. Every single husband that Melanie would, get engaged with and try to marry, he would always kill them either before or on their wedding day, kind of leaving Melanie with a bunch of trauma from marrying just a bunch of dudes that her dad would kill, without her really knowing it. This alone already kind of creates a very, very evil and just overall intimidating antagonist, definitely one of the most evil characters in the Disney parks in general, just a very scary character overall, and honestly a really good fit for the Phantom Manor. And this explains why as you go through the ride, you always see Melanie sort of in a very depressing and crying state, and the Phantom is always behind her, just watching her, making sure that she doesn't, get caught up in anything else. Just a very, scary, controlling parent overall, which I think is kind of, in some ways funny, but at the same time very, very dark. And as you can see, you're kind of following her through her story through the manor, and which means that the Phantom is sort of following you through the manor as well, which is why as soon as he actually does catch up to you, that's why you have a grave dig there and everything. He's basically planning to murder you, which again is just very scary and, kind of more of a, just overall more of an adult tone for the Haunted Mansion, I feel like, which is why this Haunted Mansion is definitely the most, I guess, scarier of all of them. This one definitely has the most, I guess, death involved in it, and not really that many goofy elements about this one. And even though some people might like the goofy elements of the Haunted Mansion, because, it is kind of a staple upon that ride that it's sort of goofy and funny, or scary, the Phantom Manor, I just feel like, does a better job overall on setting a tone and a story. However, there is a couple nitpicks I do have with it as far as, the song choice goes for the graveyard scene in particular. I just think it does a much better job than the other Haunted Mansions on, just in general creating a story-driven attraction. Now, with that being said, I do still love the Haunted Mansion. It's still probably my favorite over this one, but I do think the Phantom Manor in general is just a better ride, especially for modern day Disney. It has the better animatronics, just a better storytelling overall, and just in general better effects, along with, in my opinion, more impressive scenes, along with the fact that it does connect the entire Frontierland together, so as soon as you walk into Frontierland, you are now actively a part of the story. Which is why I do think the Phantom Manor is the best version of the attraction. But please tell me your opinions down in the comments below. What do you think of the Phantom Manor? Do you think it beats out the other Haunted Mansion in the other parks? And tell me your opinions on the Paris Frontierland as well. Me personally, I've never actually been in person, but just from videos I've seen and kind of doing a little bit of research into the story behind the Frontierland over there and all the attractions in it, I do think it's pretty cool, and it kind of serves as the best one in my opinion. But anyways guys, that's going to do it for this video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next Theme Park Theories video. Bye.